You've tuned into I Work for Him, the mouthpiece of the faith and work movement. We're your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and we're doing a rare show right here. Martha's not in the same room as me. We've had an argument, and she just doesn't like the background. So she decided to put her own background up, and we're operating separately today. But that's not really true, is it, Martha?
No, it's not, but makes for a good story.
It does. Why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of us, honey?
Well, I would say one of the great things that we've really been working on is Instagram. So, go find us there. I Work for Him Radio, and follow us and keep up to date with what's going on. And I'm just so grateful that we have a team that is helping us to do that communication. So let us know you're there, and we'd love to follow you as well.
All right, make sure you check us out online, iWork4Him.com, iWork4Him.com, and stay tuned. We got a lot of books coming out this fall, sometime near December, a trilogy, not just one, not just two, but three. I work for him, I retire for him, and she works for him. Did you know that many people out there listening to the show today are called to be active in our political system? Politics is not inherently evil. It's neutral. It depends on who the person is, whether it's evil or good. But I digress. Today, we head into the deep southeast of the United States of America to talk with AJ Swinson. She felt the call in her life to be active in the political arena and to bring truth to her African-American brothers and sisters. Stay tuned to hear about AJ's, how she's living out her faith and her work in the political arena and what kind of an impact she's making with NewJourneyPAC.org. AJ Swinson, welcome to I Work for Him.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Well, we're excited to have you. So we're going to talk about New Journey PAC. We're going to talk about your work in how you're living out your faith in the political system. But first, we want to know, why did you become a Jesus follower?
So, I was raised in church, and I went to a Christian school. And I remember one day at school, they used to have altar calls after chapel. And I realized, I'm like, wow, I've never gone up after chapel. Am I saved? Like, I've never done this in church. I've never done this in school. And I remember just thinking, I was in 5th grade, and I'm like, I probably should do that soon. So that summer when I was at church, I asked my mom to walk up to the front of church with me so that I could get saved. And then I ended up rededicating my life when I turned 19. So it started in 5th grade, and it I believe that I truly became and understood what being a Christian meant when I turned 19.
Awesome. And what part of the country did you grow up in?
I grew up in the DC area, so I'm from Prince George's County, which is about half an hour outside of Washington, DC. So it's a suburb, but it's right next to the city. So it's got kind of a mixture of the noise and the busyness, but the slower pace of the suburbs.
So Jim, in DC,
a slower pace of the suburbs near DC. I can't even imagine.
In Siberia, that's what it's like. Okay.
So Jim kind of teed up a little bit about what you're doing, but why don't you tell us what your job is currently in your new position?
So I've been working with New Journey for about 5 months, I think now, but I'm the Director of Advocacy and Giving. And my main purpose is directly to do outreach to the African American community on policy, on culture, on values, and where that will line us up politically. New Journey PAC basically focuses on realigning African American culture, African Americans with conservative values, and also making sure that we're represented in the Republican Party, and also making sure that the people who run in majority Black areas who are Republican get the support that they need and the policy infrastructure that they need to do well.
So when did you know that you were called to get involved in politics? Because this is pretty exciting what you're doing. I've not run into another person in your field in all the years of my Christianity, which is a little better than 40 years. So when did you realize that you had a call in your life to get involved in politics?
Well, it's funny because it's kind of just happened. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted per se. I remember being interested in politics from a very young age, but I always saw it as a kind of a hobby, just one of my interests. Oh, everyone's interested, I thought. My aunt, I was like 8 years old. She would bring me the Washington Post, and I would just read it cover to cover every Sunday, and she would take the coupons out and take that part. Um, and when I was in high school, we had a program where in Maryland you could be a Senate page. So I got to kind of intern in Maryland Senate. And then when I had to get an internship for my communications degree at Liberty University, I was looking for internships and applying, and I'm like, I'm not getting any internship. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to work in public relations, and I knew I had the credentials to. But I ended up getting a job in a Tea Party congressman from Kansas's office. So now I'm a press secretary intern in Congress. And it's like, this is not what I thought I would be doing. But that job opened up another job, and that job opened up. It just continued. So I'm just like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Does it
And I guess I was really passionate about it.
Does it resonate with how God created you, though? It does, right?
My mom, my first name is Angela, and my mom always told me, she's like, you're a divine messenger. That's why your name is Angela. You have God's given you a message. You need to pray, and he'll show you what that message for his people is. And so I keep that in mind. I go by AJ, but I keep that in mind. Like, my name, Angela, means I'm meant to communicate something. And what is that? And that's what I'm doing as the director of advocacy.
Truth. You're communicating truth, Martha.
So with the work that you're doing that you just explained to us, how is that impacted by the faith that you carry with you every day?
Well, honestly, politics is a dark world. I've been working in politics now for 6 years, and there's a lot of darkness there. There's a lot of lost people on both sides. I've gotten to see the humanity of people, no matter what party you are. And so it's been interesting to be able to be a light in very dark offices, to be able to stand up for truth. You think that, I'm working with conservative biblical values, not necessarily, so I've been able to use my platform to reach people in my office and to just set an example of what a Christian in the workplace should be.
That's interesting. You bring that up, that just because somebody's conservative doesn't necessarily mean they're a Jesus follower. And
Right.
sometimes you have to connect the dots. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that our country was really founded on conservative biblical principles.
Right.
Yet not all of the founding fathers were Jesus followers, but they understood the value of morality. They understood the value of what the Bible had to say, whether they were Jews or Christians or not. So AJ, talk about your work at New Journey PAC. How is it impacting the community? How is your faith and your work at New Journey PAC benefiting the community that you operate in?
So basically, we talk about politics, I think, today in a very partisan manner. I would only ever be a Republican. I would only ever be a Democrat. And you really can't look at it like that. Politics is a game. It's a numbers game. And it's all about the voters' keeping the voters' best interest in mind. So as a Black voter, I'm from Prince George's County. It's a minority majority county and largely votes Democrat. Right after COVID-19, a couple months ago, the council was considering raising taxes. And we're like, wait, why would you raise taxes? Do you know how many people got laid off of their jobs? So you're constantly holding politicians accountable. That's what it is. No matter what side they are, if they're representing you, you're holding them accountable. And what New Journey is doing is, in order for voters to have equity or an advancement on both sides, you have to have representation on both sides. So what we've been seeing is Black voters either will come out and support a candidate, wholeheartedly, or they won't support the Democrat candidate and they'll just stay home. So what that allows is either when they don't like the Democrat candidate, because they won't typically consider, unless messaging and outreach is done, which unfortunately hasn't always been, they won't consider the Republican counterpart as an option. So what you have is people like Bill de Blasio. He got very little Black support in New York, but because he got a lot of white liberal support, he's in office. But he's not beholden to Black voters because they didn't vote for him. So it's like, it's a numbers game. It's very, it's just
But it's
making numbers work and helping people to understand how politics works and how it will best benefit them and their families.
but AJ, it's really not about numbers. It's about people. I mean, that's really what you're saying. It's about the people. And you're saying that the people in the Black community have been underserved, and New Journey PAC is there to help them become served. And
Right.
it's about people because everyone in your community is a people. And
Right.
it's just that your people have been underrepresented because they maybe have been disenfranchised, or maybe not even that, just discouraged with who's out there. So how is New Journey PAC making a difference? How exactly are you enriching the Black community across the country?
Yeah, so the biggest issue that we're having right now is polling has shown that at least 20% for years of Black voters would say that they lean conservative. And yet they haven't always felt that they could support conservative candidates. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she's like, I like conservative values. I just don't like conservative. And so she's like, I know I more agree with this platform. I just don't agree with who's running or whatever. And this was a local race we were talking about.
Did you say, hey, you should run for office then? That's what you should tell them.
Right. You're a citizen. Go for it. But basically, so what we're doing is we're supporting, a lot of times, unfortunately, there's a lot of reasons for the issues that we're talking about. One is that the Republican Party doesn't really have a true outreach arm to Black America. And the RNC, they'll set up an office for Black outreach and not really fund it, not really support it sometimes. And I've known people who have worked there. I'm talking to you from people who I've known who've worked for the RNC in Black outreach. So Republicans are kind of like, oh, they're going to vote Democrat anyway. So we're not even going to waste time there. And Democrats are kind of like, oh, we're going to get their vote anyway. You kind of get this, it's kind of a laissez-faire way of viewing the vote, and people aren't getting the power that they need to make their voices heard of what their community needs. So it's kind of like you're getting stuck and we're trying to kind of pull people out of that gridlock to say, let's work with both parties. We're helping candidates that are running in mostly Black areas who are Republican, who typically, unfortunately, the Republican Party doesn't really support them. They'll say, oh, you're not going to win, so we're not going to give you support. So we're saying,
just need money, support me money. I mean, I think I'm going to interrupt you there because I want to make sure that we're talking about your work, and we don't want to get too rich into the politics side of it. But it is important. What you're saying is that the people in your Black community, their savior is not a Democrat or a Republican. It's still Jesus. Right. And so you're trying to help them connect their values that they've been raised with them voting and their voting patterns, because as you said, 20% of them, the conservative values resonate with them. And I'm guessing it's probably more than that. They just need to be able to have somebody really explain some things to them and take time. But how do you see your job as a ministry?
So for me, as far as the ministry that I do, New Journey also has a nonprofit. We want to do work there as well. The most important thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that people feel heard politically.
Absolutely.
And in order to have that, you have to have some pull on both sides. We want all citizens, especially Black Americans who have been through so much in this country, to feel heard by both parties. And so the biggest thing we're doing is we're trying to be a bridge, and we're trying to help different people who are running, because politicians, I know it's there's kind of an idea that they're all bad and they just want money and whatever, but there's a lot of politicians who really care about what they're doing, who really care about the community, and they're not getting the support that they need, and they're facing uphill battles trying to get the word out, and it's a struggle. So we're trying to help these people who have good hearts, who want to do the right thing in the community, helping them reach the people that they need in order to secure office. And by doing that, those conservative values that we talked about, the family restoration and things like that. Politicians who will support that.
Why don't you list out the conservative values that you're promoting?
So the major ones that we focus on is one, family formation, strong family formation. And that's something we actually did a collaboration recently with Star Parker at Cure to put up billboards across the country saying, if you're tired of poverty, you know, have a skill, take a job, save money, get married. We put these billboards up just to talk to people about how you can get out of poverty, not necessarily political, but it does have to do with overcoming policy disadvantages.
Right.
Unfortunately, Black Lives Matter got them taken down. But stuff like that, we're trying to push this understanding of, one, America is not inherently racist. And regardless of the past, which was, you know, we can talk about that. But today, these are the ways that you get out of poverty. These are the ways that you do well in America. You form a family, you stick with your family, you save money, you work hard. These are all biblical concepts that we agree with, but these are things that society today and culture today is coming against. And these are things that need to be reinforced because they don't just help you emotionally and mentally, but they make your communities more safe and allow you to be more productive and more financially secure.
For sure. So, you know what I love is that we're talking about your job and your work and the call that God has put on your life. But I can guarantee you that there are people listening to this show right now that are leaning in and saying, this is compelling. This is something I want to get involved in. And what's neat is it's your work, but work can also be volunteer. Work can also be boots on the ground. I want to come alongside you. So if there's somebody listening right now and they say, I want to be a part of this, this is really making sense to me and I didn't know it existed, how can they get involved?
So there's multiple different ways that you can. Unfortunately, YouTube recently censored our videos on YouTube, and they're restricting them because we're speaking out against the harmful rhetoric and agenda of Black Lives Matter. So if you want to go to newjourneypac.org, share our videos. If you see them on YouTube, please share them because YouTube is trying to silence us, basically. And then also, if you'd like to donate to anything, basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get these ads on every radio station, television. We're trying to get these ads out that basically talk about these values, talk about these politicians that we're supporting who want to do amazing work in these communities. We want to get these ads out and we want to reach as many people as we can with the election coming up.
Excellent.
So if you want to
newjourneypac.org.
Newjourneypac.org. Do you need more boots on the ground too?
So we are hoping with COVID-19, we are planning to open empowerment centers soon, or engagement centers as we call them. So hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. And if you'd like to give to those engagement centers, we're hoping to open some in Florida, in Texas, in major battleground states. So newjourneypac.org is where you can give to that.
Well, the message of communicating family values in order to eliminate poverty is so true. The numbers are staggering. When we've celebrated the National Marriage Week USA, we've gone through those numbers, and the numbers are staggering. Single moms, unwed single moms and their teenagers are almost guaranteed to be in poverty and their children imprisoned. It's amazing. It's amazing. Last question, AJ, really quick, under a minute. As a Christian working woman working in politics, what's your biggest struggle? What's your biggest faith struggle?
Well, you know, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Politics is a very dark world and it can be very difficult. You're kind of fighting an uphill battle. You have to be spiritually strong. You have to constantly fill yourself with the truth, or it's very difficult to become embittered or, you know, against all the different people coming against us. Like everything that we're trying to do that's positive, there's someone that's trying to shut it down. So that can get very discouraging. So it's like, I have faith in the Lord. I know that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just believe that regardless of the people that try to shut down the message we're trying to share, that this is what God wants us to share. And therefore he'll make sure it gets out.
Make sure you check out AJ Swinson and her team at newjourneypac.org, newjourneypac.org. You want to help promote conservative values in the Black community, give them some money. It helps them get some of those ads on TV. Listen, they're just trying to teach biblical values. And maybe they do it under a plain glass instead of stained glass, but they're still communicating God's message for the world. AJ Swinson, thanks for being on iWork4Him today.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to iWork4Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers, and our workplace, it's our mission field. But ultimately, I work
for him.